Folks, I've been looking forward to talking about this one for quite a while now, and it's honestly quite fitting right now, not just because it's WrestleMania season and not just because we had the 10-year anniversary a couple weeks ago, but also because we're in the middle of a WrestleMania build that not everybody's invested in. Despite how good the card looks for WrestleMania 41 on paper, folks aren't exactly loving the stories going into the show. I've even seen people go as far to call this the worst build to a WrestleMania ever. And honestly, it's either y'all weren't there or I need to remind y'all about the build to WrestleMania 31. Where do I start? How about how the IC title match was built with people stealing Wade Barrett's title every week? Or with Undertaker not even showing up for the build for his match with Bray Wyatt? And speaking of Undertaker, the streak was now gone, so we didn't have that part to add intrigue to this match. WWE was still stuck on the Monday Night War for whatever reason when it came to Triple H and Sting, even though not only did WWE win the war, it had almost been a decade and a half. And of course, the whole Royal Rumble debacle where fan backlash was so bad, the website to cancel the WWE network literally crashed because of how many people were trying to cancel at once. Mind you, WrestleMania 30 the year before was a show saved by WWE essentially giving fans exactly what they wanted. But with 31, it felt like WWE had this mentality of, okay, we're gonna give you what we want and you're gonna like it. And I mean, to be fair, you probably shouldn't always listen to us wrestling fans. We tend to get a little bit emotional when it comes to our opinions, but did it have to be this rough of a road to get there? So to say anticipation for this show was pretty low would be an understatement. But despite all the fan backlash, despite the questionable booking, WrestleMania 31 somehow, someway went on to become one of the most fun wrestling shows I've ever watched. Never in my life have I been so pleasantly surprised by any wrestling show, and even 10 years later, there's just so much from this show that I look back at and appreciate so much. And I just wasn't expecting to be doing that at all. So folks, let's go back to March 29th, 2015 and take a look back at how WWE essentially saved WrestleMania 31. Man, when the show opens and you got Aloe Black singing America the Beautiful, it felt like I was back in 7th grade, living my best life once again. And that probably just prompted one of y'all to either call me an unk or a baby, depending on how old you are. Either way, I can't win. And aesthetically, I just love the look of this Mania. The stage itself was alright, but something about outdoor WrestleManias in the daylight just hits different. Now, if there was any perfect way to open a WrestleMania, it would be with a multi-man ladder match. And this one was for the Intercontinental Championship. Just a banger to kick off the show, great way to get the crowd going, especially with Daniel Bryan coming out first after the way he closed Mania the year before. So many cool spots. You had Luke Harper as the star of this match, the powerbomb on Dean Ambrose through a ladder was brutal, Barrett superplexing Stardust from the top was wild, and speaking of Stardust, just seeing Cody like this will never not trip me out nowadays. And of course it was a WrestleMania ladder match, folks. You knew it was going to be good. And after a headbutt battle with Dolph Ziggler that was probably a catalyst to his first retirement, Daniel Bryan pulls down and wins the Intercontinental Championship. The guy who closed WrestleMania 30 as a champion, now a year later opens WrestleMania 31 as a champion once again. Love to see it. And sure, his run wasn't long because he'd have to retire soon after, but this was a great way to kick things off. And to follow that up, we had one of the only builds to the show I actually really enjoyed, with Seth Rollins versus Randy Orton. And I like how they painted this as Randy almost facing a younger version of himself, showing the parallels between each other's careers. And while the match wasn't a classic by any means, it was way better than I remember it being. Seth Rollins is still elite in 2025, but pre-ACL tear Rollins just moved so different. And Randy Orton, when he gives a damn, there aren't many better. Both looked like $1 million kicking out of each other's finisher. The crowd was loving it, and for only 12 minutes, they really got a lot of stuff in here. But as good as this match was, the finish was even better. You know what time it is. I still ask myself to this day, how the hell did they pull this off? Here I am thinking Randy's just gonna move, hit an RKO, alright cool, we go home. Nah, Seth launches into the clouds and comes down to meet his karma after everything he did to Randy in the lead up. Gets fried with the greatest RKO of all time. Randy's emoting like crazy. He can't even believe what he just did. The fans can't believe it. I remember my jaw just being on the floor from this. What a finish. And here I was completely forgetting about Seth Rollins as the night went on, and despite him holding Money in the Bank. But that would be very important at the end of the show. Stay tuned. How do you even follow that up? Well, with a match that at one point never seemed possible. Triple H versus the icon Sting. Sting was always that one top guy from WCW that stayed loyal, never jumped ship, and it got to a point where we never thought he'd actually make the move. So to see him debut at Survivor Series was nuts, and now him being in a WrestleMania ring to have an actual match was a spectacle all by itself. Now, it may not have been the dream opponent we may have wanted, but it is what it is. The match did take a little bit to really get going, but once the run-ins started happening, this just got so fun. It was Uncle Mania, baby. We even had the white Uncle Ruckus months before we even knew it. NWO helping Sting out made no sense whatsoever, but who cares? This was lit. DX versus the NWO in 2015. Nostalgia everywhere, dog. And look, Sting losing in the end turns a lot of people off, myself included. I never really understood why they did that. Well, I do, in a sense, understand why they did it, but I don't like it. But that doesn't take away just how much of a blast this was to watch. But maybe that's just me. And after that, we had a tag team match between AJ Lee and Paige against the Bella Twins, and even this was just fine despite them only getting about 7 minutes to really do anything. AJ taps Nikki out with the Black Widow, and it was serviceable. And that's the thing about this show, there's no bad matches here. And we're only halfway through the show, and there's already been some awesome WrestleMania moments. Before we move on though, shout out to AJ Lee as she would actually retire just 2 days after the show. She's definitely one of my favorites of all time, so I just want to show her some love real quick. Next was the United States title match between John Cena and Rusev. The match itself was pretty solid. This is where we start to get flashes of what my boy Cam likes to call PWG Cena. Man's heard all the nonsense over the years of how he can't wrestle or whatever, so in 2015, he just starts doing anything from tornado DDTs to springboard stunners. He just started to get in his bag for real. So John Cena would end up winning the US title, ending Rusev's undefeated streak. And as we know, this would start John Cena's amazing run with the US Open Challenge, which you can make the argument is the best title run for his entire career. But all that pales in comparison to Rusev making his entrance on a damn tank. Man, you want to talk about aura? Rusev had it on this night in spades, boy. Him losing, yeah, whatever. But this was easily one of the greatest WrestleMania entrances of all time. The match could have been whatever, but what everybody remembers from this was Rusev coming down in a tank, waving the Russian flag. What a visual. And now it was time for a promo from the Authority, and even watching it back, I let out a very audible groan. Back then, damn near every episode of Raw would open with Triple H and Stephanie yapping for what felt like 30 minutes, and the burnout from them still apparently has not worn off a decade later. And boy, they were fluent in Japanese. It went from them announcing the attendance record, to Stephanie taking credit for WrestleMania pretty much, to Triple H flexing his win against Sting that we literally just saw. Man, I missed a lot of things from 2015. The Authority is not one of them. But then The Rock's music hits, the vibes are up, and you know how The Rock is. He comes down, he lets the crowd get their chanting in, taking his sweet ass time to talk. Even Stephanie was trying to rush him along.
Okay, we get it, you're happy to see him. Can you be quiet now?
Oh, the irony. So after The Rock talks his shit to both of them and gets in Triple H's face, Stephanie smacks the taste out of The Rock's mouth, and he leaves the ring because he, quote, would never hit a woman. Yeah, sure thing, Dwayne. But he did have somebody at ringside that would be more than happy to. And that would be the baddest woman on the planet, Ronda Rousey. Okay, look, I know in 2025, wrestling fans hear the name Ronda Rousey and probably roll their eyes immediately, but back in 2015, the woman was untouchable. Literally. Undefeated in the UFC, a movie star, like she was one of the biggest names in sports and entertainment at that time frame. So seeing her in a WWE ring at WrestleMania no less was pretty damn cool. Her putting Triple H and Stephanie on their asses was fun, got a good pop from the crowd, and despite my sarcasm, a good segment overall. And it pretty much sets up Ronda's first feud when she came to WWE, but, you know, with a different bald guy on her side. So Bray Wyatt versus The Undertaker came next, and like I mentioned before, Bray Wyatt carried this entire feud by himself with Taker not showing up at all. But with that, there was this intrigue of what Taker would look like and if he could still even go. Because this was the first time we were going to see Undertaker since the streak was snapped. And when he came out and he looked like himself again, that was a WrestleMania moment just for me. He's the guy that got me into pro wrestling, so to see him looking better and looking healthy, it brought a smile to my face. The match itself was pretty alright, Taker was moving pretty well. Maybe not 2007 Taker levels, but still good. My favorite part of this whole thing is Undertaker doing the sit-up taunt while Bray is doing the spider crawl. This is a cool ass moment. And Bray losing didn't really bother me like it did some people. I was just really happy to see Undertaker moving like this after the depressing match we had with Brock Lesnar the year before. And well, speaking of Brock, now it's time for the main event, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the WWE title. The match I've really been looking forward to talking about, and the reason for that is because it's my favorite match of all time. Now, to make it clear, this match wouldn't crack even my top 30 of best matches I've ever seen, but the reason I love it so much is because just like this show, this was not expected to be good whatsoever. A whole essay could be written on all the missteps WWE took with Roman Reigns after the Shield breakup. I mean, taking away his cool factor, to him being the one-man Shield for some reason, to those insanely cringy promos, and of course, the nail in the coffin for the fans' positive relationship with the big dog, when he won the 2015 Royal Rumble despite almost everyone wanting it to be Daniel Bryan, which meant he was being put in a position that fans were not ready to see him in. People just didn't believe in him just yet, especially with him going up against Brock Lesnar of all people. The guy who had just broke the Undertaker's WrestleMania streak, the guy who had just destroyed Super Cena at SummerSlam. But even then, Roman Reigns' coronation felt inevitable, and this whole thing just was not clicking with fans. And do not get me started with the goofy-ass tug-of-war they did with the title on the Go Home episode of Raw. So anticipation for this main event was shaky, even for me who liked both guys at the time. But after such a fun show and an incredible promo package for this match, I gave this thing a chance, and I'm glad that I did, because these dudes delivered an absolute banger. People talk about the finish more than anything, but before that, they were just cooking. This was probably the most physical WrestleMania main event ever. They were not holding back at all. And this was before Brock's Suplex City shtick got old, so you had the crowd counting after every suplex. And despite him getting dominated for most of the match, Roman looked like he belonged. Just laughing and smiling through all the punishment until they went to the outside and Roman put a crack in Brock Lesnar's armor. The energy for this match just took a shift here, and Roman's comeback was just so good. Crowd was going crazy. It took 3 Superman punches to get Brock off his feet, the third of which being one of the cleanest I've ever seen Roman hit. And after 2 spears, it looked like it was over. But man, Brock is a GOAT at kicking out at the last millisecond, because I definitely bought that as the finish. And after one more F5 and a double down, I remember thinking to myself, okay, so who wins now? Because here's the thing, WWE was still in a corner that they put themselves into. It was either you continue Brock's part-time reign or you give the championship to somebody that fans were not ready to see on top. But that was when WWE pulled the greatest swerve in WrestleMania history, and all you hear is this. Seth Rollins, after I had totally taken him out of my mind after that insane RKO, runs down, cashes in Money in the Bank, and turns the match into a triple threat. The crowd was just going apeshit because this was history in the making. The first time Money in the Bank had ever been cashed in at WrestleMania, and they were doing it in the main event. Seth pins Roman Reigns, steals his big moment months after he just turned his back on the Shield, and wins the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. What a freaking moment, dog. On this night, WWE pulled one of their greatest plot twists ever. Instead of having to pick the lesser of 2 evils in a sense, they went ahead and took a risk on a guy that fans were ready to see on top. They could have easily just done things their way and given Roman the title like they were planning to, especially after they gave us Daniel Bryan the year before begrudgingly after we begged for it. But the way they course corrected this whole thing was just so well done. It was bold, it was smart, and it was special. And the fact that they decided to do this during the show just blows my mind. The heist of the century was just the perfect call from Michael Cole on commentary. Rollins swinging the title at the top of the stage just lives rent-free in my head. Just a perfect way to close this surprisingly incredible WrestleMania. Man, what a time this was. I don't know how they did it. After this whack-ass build, after the lack of excitement, WWE went on to give us one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. This show had it all, not a single bad match on the card. A fun spot fest in the opener, the greatest RKO ever after a great match, a rush of nostalgia for the older fans, an all-time great WrestleMania entrance, and one of the greatest twists to cap off the show. I guess we just had to trust the process. 2015 went on to be a weird year for the WWE to say the least, but on this night, the feeling was restored. A show that I went into expecting to be underwhelmed ended up becoming one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. And who knows, maybe this time next week we'll be looking at this upcoming WrestleMania the same way we look at 31. And the fact that this was 10 years ago makes me feel so damn old. But I just had so much fun watching this back, and it definitely cemented my thoughts. WrestleMania 31 is one of the GOATs. Now, where does it rank all time? Well, come back to the channel in a couple days and I'll let you know. And folks, that was WrestleMania 31. I hope you all enjoyed that look back. I know I did. Bear with me if I sound kind of funny. I'm fighting a cold, but the grind doesn't stop over here. But that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate every single one of y'all for watching, especially those of y'all that made it to the end. Like, comment, share, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Check out my other stuff that I'm going to put the links on the screen here. You can go ahead and click on that. But I'll see you on the next one. I'm out of here. I'm gone.